If you look at what folks are saying, there was a study that came out, Wall Street Journal, recession fears surge amongst CEOs, new survey suggests. And they go on to say 3/4 of global CEOs say we are in a recession or will be in the next 12 to 18 months, according to a new survey. So I don't think we need to necessarily fear this. We need to understand it. Now, a slowing economy means, businesses will be affected. I'm not trying to say they won't, because they certainly will. And, if you want to talk about economic slowdown, that's going to be measured by GDP, gross domestic product. And let me just kind of back up for this year. First quarter GDP in this country was negative 1.5. They go through 3 revisions in that second revision, negative GDP, smaller than the previous quarter. Well, the estimates right now for Q2 in this country are 0.3%. They would refer to that as anemic growth, basically flat growth. So when you see 3/4 of CEOs say we are in a recession, here's the reason why. Because the reason they'll call a recession, they'll say, hey, we just come out of, the widely held definition, 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP defining a recession. They will say that. So, I think we can look at what our experts saying right now. And while this is not a foregone conclusion, Bank Fed chair in New York came out this morning and said, my base case does not include a recession. But I think if we look at what's happening, I think it's likely, and I think we need to look out there and not be afraid of it, because what we really need to be focused on is, what does that mean for housing? Okay, what does a slowing economy mean for housing? What we like to do, keeping current matters, is go back and look at the past. The past is not always the indicator of the future, but we can learn a lot. We can say, typically, this is what's happened, and we can engage on that point. So if we look typically, I'll start to break it down here. Throughout history, during a recessionary period, interest rates go up at the beginning of the recession. We check mark that. But in order to come out of a recession, interest rates are lower to stimulate the economy moving forward. Historically, we've seen repeated uptick in interest rates followed by lower interest rates historically. Okay, so that's really the definition or sort of the play of economic slowdown. You see higher interest rates, then you see interest rates lowered to spur on the economy coming out of it. Their words here, interest rates are lowered to stimulate the economy moving forward. Why is that? Well, again, I'm going to go back to, if you've seen the KCM graphics of the average impact of the sale of a home in this country, that has a tremendous amount of impact on the economy. And the U.S. economy coming out of a recession will not recover until housing recovers, and housing will lead the way out of a recession. And if you need proof of this, or if you want to use some visuals with people that you're talking to about this topic, here's one right here. This is a look at the 30-year fixed rate going all the way back to the 70s. And then in the boxes there in yellow are the recession times. Okay, so you can see it right here. This is every recession as compared to the 30-year fixed rate. And I'll break it down even further here in just a minute. But as you go through that, you can sort of see it. Maybe it's small on your screen right now. There's a drop in the interest rate during that time. Here's what this looks like if you look at it from just a table standpoint. Okay, every recession going back to the early 80s, the range, the calendar range of that, the duration, and what happened to mortgage rates during that. Well, they all have one thing in common. In every single scenario, going back to the early 80s in a recessionary period, we've seen a drop in mortgage rates.